With Mama says namaste.
We wanted to take a minute to do a video that's not a Facebook Live because in our travels we don't always have the best bandwidth, but we wanted to do a video to share with you a little bit about how to get to know your partner better.
Who are you and why are you here?
So we wanted to kind of lay this out. So on Facebook recently we had done a series of questions where we were asking how well do you know your partner, and we did it as a contest. How well do you know your partner? Some of the questions we had is, what is your partner afraid of? What is your partner's favorite pastime? When your partner was little, what did they want to be when they grew up? Where does your partner stand on adoption or number of kids? What is on your partner's bucket list you may not have thought of? What is their personality style, their biggest strengths, their favorite food? What do you do that annoys your partner? So we had some great conversations where people were responding, and of course if they didn't know this, it was a great opportunity to ask these questions. So we wanted to just talk about, how do you really get to know your partner better?
You have to talk. You have to hang out and talk. You have to ask questions. You have to get to know each other. You have to get to sometimes some uncomfortable places.
Right. And, these questions, as we were coming up with what questions to ask, the one about adoption, that was a big one for us because when we were in the throes of falling in love and wedding plans and just talking about who we were, we thought we knew each other really well. And one thing that had not been discussed before we got married was where we stood on adoption.
And oh boy, when that one came out, it was kind of like, this slipped past. What are we going to do?
Right.
And it was interesting. I wasn't really into it, and you were really into it.
And I just was under the assumption that I would keep having children in many different ways. I knew from the very beginning. It says, what does your partner want to be when they grew up? What did you say when?
I said a mom.
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And so since I knew that from the very beginning, this was just kind of a given that adoption would be a part of this as well. And so hearing that my husband had never really, that wasn't something that he felt called to at all, was a big blow for me at first. And so having those conversations really kind of opened the door for more connection. And now with that one actually brings up a really good point too, because there were multiple ways that could have gone. And me finding out that he was not for adoption, that could have been, if I was very, very for it, which I was not. I was open to the idea, but I was not feeling like that was my calling in life either.
But you would never turn it down.
But I would not turn down that if it were to arise. And so I could have shut that down, though. I could have said, well, you're not the right one for me. And we parted ways. And
it's been 3 months.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was like 3 months when that happened. Yeah. So one of the big things with that is, instead of me just going straight to trying to prove him wrong, there were a few different things that we did, I think, to navigate through it.
Well, I don't think it was, it wasn't really like a defining thing either. I think that one thing that I had said during the Facebook Live is kind of the permission of growing as well. Having the right to change that opinion too.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was it wasn't a weapon that you wielded passive aggressively in our relationship or anything like that. It was just kind of an understanding that if we couldn't have children, this may be a battle that we would have to fight. Right?
So in getting to know each other better, asking questions, playing 21 questions is a great way to do it. And when you hit those questions where maybe you don't really see eye to eye on it, seek to understand versus prove each other wrong.
That's so important, especially when you get close to the person.
Yeah.
You loved me, and so you knew that where my heart was.
Right, and I loved him so much, I wanted to seek to understand him versus just trying to convince him to jump to my side. And I think, this goes a lot more broad than just in marriage, in dealing with anybody with disagreements. If we can seek to understand versus just pointing the finger as to how they are incorrect, it can make for a really powerful connection. And we're dealing with that with, some of our dearest friends think very differently than we do on big issues, whether that is medicine or politics. I mean, we've got some heated topics here, and we have some close friends that think very differently when it comes to diet or politics or religion. And these are things that could completely divide us, but we have chosen to seek to understand one another. And in doing that, we found that even though there may be some differences, there are also some elements where we do find common ground. And I feel like our relationship is richer because we have these people who have different viewpoints and different perspectives in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to your relationship, as the first and foremost, this most important relationship that you have, really, as you're asking questions, seek to understand each other, not just to prove each other wrong. And give space for growth, because where we stood at, just turned 23 and 24 years old,
right,
when we had gotten married, where we stood at that point when it came to so many things: religion, politics, education for our children,
life path,
adoption, life path, what we were going to do. Oh my gosh, it has changed. It has grown so much. Neither one of us would have fathomed that we'd be talking on a video camera, sharing it with a Mama Says Namaste community, sitting in a travel trailer in the middle of Washington. This has never crossed our mind. There are so many things that happen that have allowed for us to grow and learn and change. And because we've been willing to seek to understand one another, we have done this together, and we have grown together. And both of us have changed our viewpoints on so many things simply by us being...
Maybe just grown in our understanding of...
Yeah, I guess just being willing to remain teachable.
Yeah.
So asking questions is a great way to know your partner. Another thing, though, is... when do you have time to do that? We have a new infant and toddlers and kids in the house.
You got lots of
when
time.
are you actually going to have an opportunity to really get to know your partner better? When you're simply just reacting to the day-to-day. And you're a victim of circumstance at this point, because there's always something being thrown at you. You've got errands to run. There's work to do. You're exhausted. The house is a wreck. And you have young children at home. How do you make it happen?
Well, we've always time blocked and kind of bookended our day. And so that's really helped us. Now, infants are tough because you're kind of in the thick of it. You're kind of beholden to their demands to some degree.
Well, I have
but
to
you
say,
can still sneak away.
Even with the infants, I mean, I remember, oh man, what was it?
The more you have, the more you realize they don't need you as much as you think they do.
Or how many times that you just opted to get up and be with me while I was nursing, and we had an opportunity to talk, and our child was occupied. Or
that usually happened in the mid to early morning hours.
That would definitely be morning hours, not
Other
in the
than
middle
that,
of
I
the
was
night.
pretty useless. No
Middle of the night
conversations
didn't work.
at 2 o'clock in the morning for me.
Yeah.
No.
But it, you have to be intentional about setting it aside, but setting some time aside. It doesn't have to be forever.
But
and
if
it
it's
can be
something that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if it's something that's important to you, it's not an inconvenience. It's something you want to do.
Right.
And so it's important to us, and so that's something that we made a priority.
Simply while you're running errands or driving in the car, and something, just asking a question to get to know that person better. Something that you haven't thought of before, or maybe just going back and revisiting a question that you had before and asking, what do you think about it now? Well, we've done that. We've talked about it recently. What do we feel about adoption now as opposed to when we were 23 and 24? Well, we have a different perspective on it now. I have 2 brothers who have both adopted, and we know more about it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go full tilt boogie down that path, but we've addressed it in a different way now, and we can
Thank you.
kind of be connected and kind of be on the same wavelength from it, because we've spent the past, 16 years, 14 years married, 16 years together. We've spent the past 16 years talking and getting to know where we stand on something, and recognizing the fact that where we stand now doesn't mean this will always be the case. So we're seeking to understand and to grow together.
Yeah.
That's so huge. And as we're doing it, another thing is not holding back. And if you want to really hear your partner's heart, you have to be willing to give yours. And that means sharing the vulnerable stuff too. Maybe you are opposed to something and it's more based about your fear or your own negative story. You have to be really willing to really be open. If you want to ask these questions and you want your partner to open up, you have to be willing to open up as well. So an example for us had to do with guns.
Yeah, it was a very, very touchy subject because I had always hunted and believed in gun safety and knowledge.
And I came from an experience where I had a family member commit suicide with a gun. And I was very, very against it. And that was a very dark pain place for me that I even avoided talking about. And so when we were able to really talk about our why behind it, why was he pro-gun and I was anti-gun, and we recognized our own personal stories in it, we were able to better understand and to decide what we wanted for our family.
And that's also grown and changed as we have grown and changed as well.
And honestly, the other part of that is the fact of being willing to open up, because that was an area that I needed to talk about and I needed healing in, because it was an area that I shut out. So if you find yourself having an area that you will not discuss with your partner, really take a hard look as to why you won't discuss it. And is it something that you need to discuss and that you need healing in order to move forward and have better connection in life? I did not recognize how much my aversion to guns had blocked me and shut me in and built walls around me to avoid that area of my life. And when I was able to talk about it and process through it, it definitely helped for more healing and growth in my whole family, as we all were able to kind of talk and own the impact that made in our house or in our home, in our family.
Well, a lot of times when you let fear drive you, it does not drive you well.
Right.
And it usually drives you irrationally. And that's just something that, I've had to recognize in my own thing, my own self as well. And so we just would talk about that and explore that together, not in a shameful or disgraceful way, but just kind of a challenging of, well, maybe that's something that I might not be the person to have that conversation with, but maybe you should explore this with somebody you feel comfortable with.
Right. So going back to bookending your day, we've talked about having those opportunities to just talk throughout the day, and I think that those are really important to be able to just connect and check in. But having that intentional time, whether it's bookending your day by deciding that you're going to get up a little bit earlier before the kids in order to have some time for the two of you to connect, or having that time in the evening, it is so important to create that sacred space for your relationship. We do it and we prioritize. When a kid needs us and is sick, we throw everything else and we'll stop and we'll focus on the kid. When there's a work emergency and we have to be at that meeting, we throw everything aside and we do it. But how often do we prioritize and we do that in our relationship?
Yeah, and I think it's something that can get brushed aside really, really easily. We can make excuses that, we don't, we connect, or we're sleeping together, or we're next to each other, I don't need that, or we can just watch a TV show together, and that's fine. Sometimes you can do that, and that's how people can connect, but I've found verbal and nonverbal communication to be so vital in really giving you permission to have those hard conversations, because if you don't build that foundation, then those hard conversations are tough.
Right. They become those huge mountains that can really divide a family or create such tension everybody's walking on eggshells and you don't have that family life that you want. So it is so important to really get to know your partner, to connect with them, and to give them grace that this is who they are in this moment, and there is always opportunity for growth. There's always opportunity for you to choose to find the common ground, to prioritize one another, to walk through it together, and to really recognize that, you know, you made the choice to be with this person, and you're choosing to be with this person every single day. You're choosing to love them, and you got to look at what love looks like. And love for us means communication and connection, and making each other a priority, and really getting to know who we are. And in doing so, falling in love more and more with the amazing person, you know, I'll speak for me, but, you know, with the amazing person you are, but also the man I know you're still growing and developing, because we're always growing and changing. And I'm very grateful to grow with you and not away.
Me too. I think it's so important to find space for that in your relationship, to find a time where you can connect. Because if you don't, sometimes it doesn't happen as organically as we'd like it to. It's romantic for it to, and sometimes it does work out that way, but I've found that you have to make time.
Yeah. So make time for your partner. Give them love in multiple ways. And that can be through a listening ear, through asking those questions that let them know that you are curious about them and you want to know more about who they are, and through just simply enjoying each other and remembering that laughter is a big part of connection, and physical touch is a big part of connection. Being open to communicate and being vulnerable with one another is a big part in connection. So look at where do you feel love? How do you feel love? And ask your partner the same. Look for ways to connect and to meet that common ground, so that you really are not just surviving, but truly thriving in your relationship. Namaste.
Namaste.
Already on the run. Mama says namaste. Life is a tangled mess, and you don't have to stress. Mama says namaste. 'Cause today I will stand up and be all the change that I want to see in this world. Boys and girls, you gotta have to stand up to be free. Namaste in your heart. Take a deep breath in, then let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.